Hey, John Crooks here with part 6 in a series on pitch and pitch systems in tonal music. Today we will take a closer look at the diatonic set we built in the last presentation using Pythagorean tuning systems and see how its triads sound compared to the pure triads we built in an earlier presentation. That Pythagorean set was built using a series of frequencies in the ratio of 3 to 2, which are called perfect fifths. Then these are collapsed down to within a 2-to-1 octave ratio. Now, our overall goal with this series is to understand how pitch systems work in tonal music. And this is related to the way we tune our pianos, organs, guitars. Any fixed pitch instrument has to have some kind of a tuning system. Today we're going to be hearing triads that are very, very close in terms of frequencies and hertz and to the way they sound to our ears. But these small differences make a pretty big impact on how we deal with something like a tuning system. So today we're going to be hearing some changes in pitch that are very small, but they really are a big deal. For instance, if you want to tune a guitar or a piano or any instrument that covers several octaves, you have to have a very, very stable circulating way to tune that instrument so that all the 2-to-1 octaves are pure. What we're going to be hearing today is some contrasts between the pure triads we looked at in an earlier presentation and the tuning system that we developed yesterday, a diatonic collection built on fifths, which is called a Pythagorean system. So without further ado, let's take a look at these triads. Let's take a moment to familiarize ourselves with this screen. First of all, over here, we're going to use a new kind of oscilloscope today, one that shows an XY array of the frequencies that we are hearing. So instead of just seeing a single waveform scroll across the center of the screen, we will see a combination of X and Y axes. These are called Lissajous figures, and this will result in a little bit more of a dynamic appreciation of the sound and the feel of the waveforms for the triad. Looking over here, we see the diatonic circle of fifths that we built in a previous episode. So this is our series of fifths that we built as a stack to create a Pythagorean scale. So this would be C, G, D, A, E, and B, and we move backwards from C to get F. Now, this is a circle, but not quite the kind of circle we need for a good tuning system because we have this B to F that is not a fifth. So although we have a kind of a circle, it is not a circulating system. We don't have the same interval moving all the way around the circle as we do with the circle of 12 fifths we looked at in an earlier presentation. So we discussed how to build a triad that has 4 to 5 to 6 ratios in a previous episode. Let's look at the numbers here. This is a triad right here that is based on the fundamental pitch of C that we use to build our Pythagorean set. And it has a C that's 264 hertz, E is 330, and G is 396 hertz. And this is indeed a 4 to 5 to 6 ratio relationship. And when we listen to the sound, we can hear it quite clearly. That is the sound of a pure triad, and we can see that the shape is very cool here on this XY oscilloscope. I can even change it and turn it around a little bit using something called the phase. And we see that this is indeed a very smooth waveform. And listening to it, we can hear that it is very harmonious. Each one of the pitches blends with the other seamlessly so that we get this just or pure sound. Now, appreciating how pure that sound is, let's take a minute and compare that to the Pythagorean one triad we would get using a stack of Pythagorean fifths. And if you want to get those numbers, we'll see them now. You can also see them in an earlier presentation. So let's listen to this just triad, and then I will switch over to the Pythagorean one and see if we can tell the difference. Okay, it's pretty clear, I think. We can hear that the triad now sounds different, and there's a lot of sort of internal discord in the interaction of the three pitches. And what has changed is our C and G are still the same, but E is now 334.125 hertz. So just lowering the E by a few hertz changes the sound and the behavior of the triad pretty significantly. Now, it is possible for us to build a diatonic set with just 1, 4, and 5 triads, and that's what this looks like right here. So here's our just 1 triad, a just 4 triad, and a just 5 triad. And we can see that the waveform for each of these is very stable and maintains that shape of a pure triad seen in this kind of XY oscilloscope. And we can even compare this to the 4 to 5 to 1 ringtone progression. Da da da, da da da, da da da. Now let's compare this 1, 4, 5 sound as just triads to our Pythagorean 1, 4, and 5. We already heard our out of tune. There's our in tune, just 1 triad. Now here's the Pythagorean one. And here's the Pythagorean 4 triad. We see the same discord in the waveform that is completely missing in the 4 triad, which is pure. And then the Pythagorean 5 triad. And as we go higher in pitch, this will become more noticeable to our ear. Here's the 5 triad with its 3rd degree B being 495 hertz compared to the Pythagorean sound. That is definitely noticeable to my ear. So we can build a diatonic set with just 1, 4, and 5 triads, and that looks like this. And we see our frequencies in hertz right there. And if we compare this to the Pythagorean stack that we built in a previous presentation, the differences are quite obvious. Each third pitch, each major third, is now a little bit different in the Pythagorean fifths. They're all a bit sharper. So there's B is 501 point whatever, E is 334.125, and A is 445.5, whereas the just triads are all round numbers, 440, 330, and 495. And these really yield a pretty different feel of triad. Even though the differences in hertz are quite small, I think that they are fairly noticeable on the oral level. There's our pure 5 triad. And the Pythagorean one. Let's just switch back and forth a couple times. So it would seem to me to be much more desirable for us to have a system of diatonic tuning where we can get 7 pitches, a diatonic set where all of the triads are in tune like this, have this nice 4 to 5 to 6 relationship, and Pythagorean tuning clearly does not do that for us. So moving forward, let's see if we can tune a 7-pitch diatonic set where all the triads are in tune. And I think it will be surprising what happens when we do this and add a little bit more nuance. We see here we have our 7 pitches and they're all in tune, but there's some things that we haven't quite reckoned with yet, and we will do that in a future presentation. So this is where things start to get interesting. We have discovered certain basic principles about harmony that should be sort of harmonious with each other. The idea of the 2 to 1 octave, of a circular system of 3 to 2 pitches, and of these really nice just 4 to 5 to 6 triads seem like things that should work very well together. We certainly seem to have them in use every day in the tonal music that we listen to. We have a circular system of pitches. We hear triads in that subdominant, dominant, and tonic relationship in almost every piece of music we encounter. So we have found this Pythagorean system that generates a diatonic set for us, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. But these triads in the Pythagorean system don't sound in tune. Just now, we saw how we could create a series of frequencies that form a diatonic set where all the triads are in tune. So for our next presentation, we will look at that set of tuning with pure triads to see what happens when we add a little bit more complexity to the tonal system we want to keep in tune.